Welcome back to Cosmoholics Anonymous. I am your favorite mother of three, Bougie Vintage, and today's video is the Heartless G story. Before I get into this video, I just want to give a little disclaimer because, child, my video is only based on the facts that are on the internet, online. I am not Sherlock Holmes. I am not investigation discovery, child. I am not about to do the utmost and find and uncover stuff that we don't need to uncover. Once the case is closed, child, is closed, and we're not opening it back up. I say this because one of the comments I received on the video about Presidente was that the killings were not random and that I need to do more research. But every article that I read online and plus the documentary stated that these killings were random. Now, of course, I did state in that video that certain things just didn't make sense to me, like specifically the night that the two victims were murdered at the same time and how they were supposed to be on their way to the liquor store, but then they went on a detour. In my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, did they get a text message? Did they get a call to say that these two people were in the alley? It just didn't make sense that they would randomly go on a detour and find two people to shoot at. You know what I mean? I totally see that there's holes all over that whole entire situation, but that is not for me to freaking unravel and do. No. So that's just a disclaimer here. I only am sharing what's already publicly known and what's already online, and that is it. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay, so if you do not like what I share, that is between you and the good Lord above. I can only report on what the Toronto Sun, the Star, National Post, girl, what's in the newspaper. Okay, I was not sitting in the courtroom. Hello. Anyway, that is it. And now that we know that, let's get into this video. So I really toggled back and forth between what should I do, this story first or Sam G's story first, because I feel like Sam G is like the godfather of rap in Toronto, especially this type of rap. People may disagree with that. People may not feel that he is, but I mean, we can say it's Drake, but Sam G is definitely one of the godfathers of Toronto rap, and having a, I guess, criminal past, not having cap in his rap. So because of that, I feel like I need to cover his story early on. This story in particular that I'm covering today about Heartless G is really important to cover because this is the story on how, why, and when they kind of changed the laws and started allowing music videos that have been put on YouTube and lyrics from Toronto rappers to be used in court. Now, he's not the first person that they did this with, but he definitely had the most submissions of music videos and lyrics in a trial. I'm going to take you guys back to 2010. Again, 2010 was a very hot year in Toronto, clearly, okay? It was very hot outside. The block was definitely hot in 2010. The block being hot, chat. So the story is pretty short. On May 3rd of 2010, there was a confrontation in the street. School had just let out, and in this particular area, the color red is the dominant color. Now, obviously we know red is associated with Bloods, blue is associated with Crips, but there was a gang called the Vaughan Road Bloods. And there was an association with these Bloods called the MOB Clique. And that's clique with a K, okay? Flag talk. And so obviously if you're in a neighborhood that is predominantly red and you are not a civilian, you're either going to be wearing red or you can be dressed in the rival color, but it's not safe to do that. And I remember I met these guys at Carabana one year. They lived in the West End. And I remember them telling me, like, when you are coming, do not wear certain colors. So I said, okay, I'm just going to come in all black okay? Because I am not trying to target. Obviously, I'm a civilian. I am not affiliated with any buddy that is in a gang. But either way, I knew that if I was going to a certain neighborhood, I'm not going to be wearing certain colors. You want to be neutral as possible. So on this particular day, on May 3rd of 2010, school had just let out, and there was a young man by the name of Mitchell Solis, and he was 17 years old, obviously in high school, but he was wearing all blue in this neighborhood that is supposed to be all red. So he was approached. He was actually with somebody that they're saying is unknown, and that's because this person wanted to remain anonymous as they become a witness in this situation. And obviously, if you were in a situation like this, you would want to be unknown if you are considering yourself a civilian or if you're considering yourself an affiliate of a person that may or may not be affiliated in a gang as well. You're going to definitely want to remain anonymous if you have intentions on telling what you saw or experienced that day. So this anonymous person was essentially a loose end, and they were with the 17-year-old boy Mitchell, who was confronted because he was wearing all blue. Now, obviously we were not there, so all we could go on is what was reported. And essentially that is that a young man named Chael Mills, I hope I said his name right, he is the 19-year-old, and another man named LeVar Williams, they approached Mitchell and confronted him about the colors he was wearing. Now, Chael Mitchell is also known as Jinja, and he also is known as Heartless G, so Heartless Jinja, as a rapper. And the MOB clique, according to their lawyers, or his lawyer, is actually just a music group. It is not a gang affiliation. These lyrics and this music video is essentially a big reason or a big part to why he was convicted of this crime, apart from other things that we'll get into in a second. But here it is.
I don't like being on the left, nigga.
It's my nigga Heartless, man.
You say that while you're recording.
What? Mob click.
Heartless. Yeah. Ain't no way to save me. Drug trafficker, gun black like Africa. I'm in a murder beef, face up, casket shut, so I'll shut a nigga movie down for acting up.
The reason that I said that the anonymous person was a loose end is because once the confrontation arose, Mitchell, the 17-year-old boy, began running, but he was then shot in the back. The anonymous person managed to get away. Now, if the anonymous person was gang affiliated in any way, assuming that his friend that's wearing all blue that was shot is associated with a gang. I mean, that's not really fair to say. Just because he's wearing all blue from head to toe does not mean he's affiliated with a gang, because a lot of the time what happens is, and this is why they actually, I remember being in elementary school and they started to ban certain things, and like one of those things was obviously bandanas. You could not wear bandanas to school, and it didn't matter. I remember one time I got in trouble for wearing a SpongeBob bandana, okay? It literally did not matter what kind of bandana it was. I had a Dora the Explorer bandana and I had a SpongeBob bandana, and they tried to take them from me at school. And I'm like, are you guys dumb? Like, I was not having it. Anyway, they didn't want my mama coming up in the school, okay? But they started banning certain things, and you couldn't wear certain colors head to toe, and you couldn't, you know, do those things. And so I remember that from elementary school once I moved to Scarborough. When I lived in Pickering, that was not an issue, okay? They didn't do that. They did not do that at all. And so what I found though was as early as grade 4, there were little boys in my school rocking blue flags out of the back pocket of their jeans. And so the schools did not take lightly to that, especially living in Malvern. They didn't take lightly to that. So they started enforcing suspensions and zero tolerance policies and all kinds of stuff, really. But these little boys were not necessarily in any gangs. They were inspired by probably their older brothers. They were inspired by music videos, Snoop Dogg, okay? Like, they weren't necessarily affiliated but they wanted to be because that was what was cool. And I mean, Get Rich or Die Trying came out in what, grade 5, like and that's what we were listening to, and that's what was cool. And so just because somebody was wearing those colors doesn't necessarily mean that they are affiliated. But that's why, as a parent, as a brother, a sister, whoever, that's why I guess you're supposed to kind of step in and not allow your child or whoever to leave the house in certain clothing if they're not affiliated. I mean, if they're affiliated and you have no control over what they wear and they want to do that, then that's really on them. But if they're not, and I mean, essentially all 3 of these people were just children. Like, you're 18, you're 19, you're still a kid, you know what I mean? Anyway, he was approached for wearing all blue and they shot and killed him. Now, something that was reported that he was a member or affiliated with the Eglinton West Crips. So it was actually reported that this was a retaliation killing because somebody else had been murdered on the other side. So for that reason, that is why they ended up pulling out literally all the stops to get the conviction of Chael Mills and LeVar Williams. Now, rap music is really interesting. Well, really all music is interesting. What we know about music is that it's definitely a huge art form and people like to express themselves through their music, whether good or bad. So with rap specifically, the energy around rap, especially gangsta rap, is like usually violent. Usually we talk about drugs. There's a lot of degrading of women in rap music. I think rap music at its core, in a lot of cases or instances, it's usually about what's going on around you in your neighborhood, what you've experienced, what you've lived through. A lot of times rap music is sad because people are dying, people are losing their family members, you know what I mean? I don't think that there's a rapper out here that hasn't lost a friend. And so since rap music is like this, they decided that they were going to use Heartless G's rap music and his lyrics in his trial to get a conviction. This was pretty much an open and shut case, and the reason is because the witness, I guess, was not wearing blue, but ended up contacting the police the following day to, I guess, give a description of the people that shot his friend. So that was loose end number 1. One of the bigger issues was that Heartless has a tattoo on his neck, and tattoos, as we all know, are always used. If you watch First 48 or anything like that, they always use tattoos as identifiers because tattoos are definitely unique to each individual. Because Heartless has this tattoo on his neck and it was clearly visible, which is actually why in any movie that I've seen where there's some kind of criminal activity going on, the police in the movies are always looking for identifiers such as tattoos. And a lot of the times that's what ends up getting people caught, is their tattoos. So he has this huge tattoo on his neck, and the loose end anonymous person sees the tattoo and tells the police the description of the person. And so once they have that, they have the anonymous person come in to do a photo lineup. They actually, because Heartless was known to police and they know he has a tattoo on his neck and he fit the description, obviously at that point they didn't have enough to arrest him for the murder. So he was put in a photo lineup, and what they did was take that tattoo and Photoshop it onto the necks of 12 other people that fit the description. And of course, the anonymous person was able to pick him out of the lineup, which his tattoo was not photoshopped onto his neck. So that's how they managed to get him identified. The other individual, LeVar Williams, who was only 18 at the time, he was actually apprehended first. So the murder took place on May 3rd of 2010. And on, I believe, May 19th is when LeVar was picked up by police. He was arrested at that time. He is more so just a co-accused because it wasn't him that necessarily pulled the trigger. He got picked up early on, but Heartless went on the run. So Heartless ended up in London, Ontario, and for whatever reason, People love to run to London, Ontario. I don't know why people be going to London, Ontario, but that's where a lot of people go. That's considered OT. And like, I think people should stop going to London, Ontario, because like it's officially hot there, okay? And this is back in 2010, okay? So he goes on the run, and the police actually released his mugshot, release information about him, and ask him to turn himself in.
We were able to positively identify one of the suspects involved in this case. A Canada-wide first-degree murder arrest warrant has been issued for Shale Mills, 19 years of age, of no fixed address, of Toronto. He is described as male, black, light complexion, 6 feet tall, approximately 180 pounds, brown eyes. He has a very distinct tattoo on the right side of his neck. He is also known by the nickname Jinja. I appeal to Mr. Mills to contact a lawyer for legal advice and to make arrangements to surrender himself.
Most rappers don't do that. They don't really want to turn themselves in. They go on the run for as long as possible. There's so many, oh my god, there's so many stories to cover, literally, of people that have gone on the run. But yeah, he goes on the run to London, Ontario, and they don't apprehend him until August. Yes, I know this foundation is dark. It's because my neck is still discolored from pregnancy. So don't worry about this. It's the end result that matters. Anyway, the last video, somebody's like, not blackface, Jab. I know, it looks crazy, but don't worry. The end result will be popping. May 19th, LeVar Williams gets apprehended and charged with first-degree murder. And then on August 13th of 2010, the police arrest Shale Mills, aka Heartless G, in London, Ontario. They also charge him with first-degree murder. The reason that they were both charged, well, obviously they were together, but they fired 5 rounds at the young boy as he was running, and only 1 bullet managed to strike him. Because it was broad dizzy, okay, it's daytime, and school just let out. That means that there's likely, it's 3:30 p.m. So it's like there's a lot of people around. It's not like this was at nighttime in the middle of nowhere. So because it was daytime and there's a lot of witnesses, that didn't necessarily matter, because something like this is not going to have a lot of people talking. When there are cases with gang-related violence, people don't help out, which makes sense. I ain't gonna help, okay? I am not going to help the police do their job. They need to do their damn job themselves. As we saw in the last video, you help the police and they repay you by calling you a snitch and a rat. So you just need to let people do their job. Now, that being said, the police are aware that when there is gang violence, the public is not going to help them, whether it's a civilian or another person affiliated with a gang. They lucked up when this person, Mr. Anonymous, decided to contact them and tell them, you know, what happened. Otherwise, they probably would never have been able to catch Heartless or LeVar. Back to the evidence, because there was more issues than just the fact that somebody was willing to come forward and speak. Another issue was that apparently had left clothing at the crime scene, and that clothing that he left at the crime scene had not only his DNA on it, but also gunpowder residue. And so this is why I say that it was pretty much an open and shut case, because once they had him identified and they had the clothing from the scene of the crime plus his rap music, which they used against him, because what these gang experts try to say is that music is used for rival gang people to communicate and claim territory and brag and boast about whatever it is that they are doing. And so this information is essentially why they started to allow in Canada rap music specifically to be used in court and to convince a jury to convict people that are accused of crimes. I have mixed feelings about this because yes, music is an art form, and I mean, you should be able to say whatever you want to say in music. I'm not a gangster. I'm far from a gangster, but if I want to, you know, make a rap song and act like a gangster, I can. My point that I'm trying to make is acting like a gangster doesn't necessarily make you a gangster. A lot of the times with music, artists have personas. Artists have alter egos. It's like Beyonce and Sasha Fierce. Those are both Beyonce, but she says that Sasha Fierce does stuff and says stuff that Beyonce necessarily wouldn't say. This is the same thing with Chael versus Heartless G. It's him, but what his lawyer would obviously try to present is that Heartless G and Chael can coexist. They don't have to be the same person. So you cannot take Heartless G's music and say that, yes, he said this, this, and this. He said MOB click in his music. This means that he's in a gang and that he is killing this person because they're wearing blue and he's a blood and all these things. It's not really fair to do that. However, if it were a case where he committed the crime and then made a song about it, kind of what they do or what they're doing with YNW Melly, his music is definitely on trial because he has a song where he talks about murder on his mind, and he has lyrics that say he didn't mean to do something. It was an accident. Because he has lyrics that are like that, and he has lyrics saying something similar to what actually happened, his friend is dead and they're charging him with the murder, it makes sense in that case to use it. But in this case, they're using an old video and old music that had already been online, not posted online after the fact. You know what I mean? So that's why I have mixed feelings about it. I think a big takeaway here, a huge takeaway, is to stop putting your crimes in your music. Like, don't do it. Just don't. Because it is definitely going to come back to bite you. Since they used Heartless G's music against him, one of the songs that they decided to use against him was called Cocaine Alumni. And specifically, the lyrics that they used against him are, I just unload, then I reload. I take that 30-30 right now. It's that 12 gauge shotty. Bullets in your chest and your throat. I'm trying to get you bodied. I don't like being on the left, nigga. It's my nigga, Heartless man. Whoop whoop, MOB click, Heartless, yeah. What they do in court is take these lyrics and say, look, he's black, he's violent, he is a criminal. He is rapping about getting you bodied. He's even telling us in the song what kind of gun he possesses or uses. And so if you are a rapper, but you are in the street and not just rapping about the street and pretending like how it is in Toronto, a lot of the people are not pretending. This is the life they live, not necessarily by choice. And a lot of them, thank God for where YouTube is today, they're getting a YouTube check, a big one at that, because Toronto rap has definitely picked up in the last few years and people are having millions of views on YouTube. And I'm speaking from experience here, the YouTube check is a good check, honey, when it's coming in. So because of that, some of them are using the music to get out of where they're from, but a lot of them are still stuck. And so some people do get stuck in like the crosshairs, or they get stuck trying to be an artist and, you know, move from where they are at, but they don't get the chance to because they either something old comes up that they did, they're still kind of in the street, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because the money's not coming in quick enough. They are doing other crimes on the side, the crimes that they're rapping about, or they end up dead. Like Bully, for instance, who was definitely a rising star and was shot. He was gunned down. So because of lack of guidance, because of a lot of contributing factors, these young black men get sucked into this life. A lot of the times they're coming from single parent homes. They don't have that guidance at all. And so when there's no guidance, and the only person they have to look up to is their older brother, who was also sucked into the foolishness. This is essentially what happens. They end up on either side of the gun. So in Heartless G's trial, the police downloaded 76, okay? They downloaded 76 music videos off of YouTube. And out of those 76 videos, the Crown tried to have 10 brought in as evidence. And these music videos and song lyrics would essentially be one of the contributing factors in whether or not Heartless G and his co-accused would be free again. And also one of the contributing factors into what rap in Toronto means today in court for the up-and-coming people that are experiencing the same things. So basically they were taking these 10 music videos out of the 76 and using them against Hale and LeVar as evidence or proof that they are in a rival gang and that this crime was committed as an act of that. And also motive. How the hell you gonna get motive from a music video? That's crazy to me. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember rapping Snoop Dogg lyrics, and I remember the little boys in my school wearing their blue flags out of their left side. And so I think that's specifically why they use these lyrics from Heartless, because he mentioned specifically the left side, and then the boy was wearing blue, so they're like, oh, there's your motive. I'm just like, literally the lyrics screwed him in the end, because it could have been, they could have had a problem from before, you know what I mean? It doesn't justify it. Let's make that very clear. That does not justify it. But my point is that these two could have had an altercation a week ago. They could have had a problem prior to this. That could be the actual motive. But because of his music videos, his music, the message that he was conveying in his music, and that crime that was committed, it's their job to prove in court that these two people are guilty of this crime, and they have to have motive behind it, or the charges may not stick. And so because it's their job to prove their guilt, they're gonna do everything and anything to do that. So they used the lyrics, they used graffiti, they used the tattoos. And although the Crown applied to have 10 of the music videos used, the judge only allowed for 6 of them to be used. 3 of those videos were Caucasian Alumni, You Don't Really Want It, and Hood Life. I feel like whoever was their lawyer had a big job to do defending them. Jury, I'm sure, was not a jury of their peers. It was probably a bunch of damn white folk. I don't know who was on the jury, so I can't really say that. But the jury is usually not of your peers, especially in a case like this. And so if people on the jury that understand rap music, that understand that his music could be an exaggeration and it's not necessarily all factual, he could just be saying that's how he feels, they may not have considered his lyrics. But because the crime was violent in nature and this wasn't a drug offense, I think it's easy to see why they would convict him, or convict both of them. Even though Heartless got first degree and LeVar got second degree, so they didn't end up charging both of them or convicting both of them with first degree murder. But Heartless indeed was convicted with first degree murder, and a big part of that was because of his music videos. Now, one of my bigger issues with this whole music thing is that if this was a Post Malone or a Jack Harlow rapping about the same stuff, I don't think that they would necessarily use it against them. But because they are black and because they are obviously, you know, practicing what they are preaching in their music, they use it against them. It's the same with the last story I told. If he was Caucasian and he did those crimes, They would have considered that PTSD from the jump, okay? They would have said, he was disfigured at 16, he's angry. Like, those are the things that they would have considered when convicting President had he been white. But because they're black, those things do not matter. So in Heartless G's case, this was the first time in Canada that this many videos or lyrics from a rapper were ever used in a courtroom. And so this is big news. This is huge. This really tipped the scales, not in rappers' favors from Toronto that are actually living the life that they're rapping about. Because now, when a rapper from Toronto does a crime, immediately they go and download those videos off of YouTube, just like they did with the Heartless case, and they're more likely going to get used against the rappers in Toronto. Had Heartless committed this crime and then made a song about the crime that he committed, specifically that incident on May 3rd, then I would think that it's fair to use his lyrics against him. If you commit a crime and then you go brag about it, then I think it's fair game. But because the lyrics and the stuff that was online was not specifically about the May 3rd incident, it's really not fair to use against him. So when I was looking at this case, I actually came across this article that was talking about how they're using rap against black youth. There have been over 36 attempts to put rap music on trial, and it goes back to as early as 1990. They tried to criminalize the possession of rap under an obscenity law. In 1990, there was a man named Mark Emery, and he owned a copy of a music video from 2 Live Crew called As Nasty As They Wanna Be. The police got a search warrant and they seized the copy of the 2 Live Crew video. Like, why? Why do they care? From a library clerk, okay? Like, literally, they tried to say that it's an obscene visual and that he cannot possess it. He cannot have it in his library. And this man, Mark Emery, was essentially convicted of this crime, which is so stupid. Even though it is mainly black people and put on trial, Paul Bernardo, who is also a Canadian, he had a song called Deadly Innocence, and they tried to use that against him in court. Now, if you know anything about Paul Bernardo, any song that he had made should definitely have been put on trial, but the judge did not allow it. And his crimes were disgusting. So it's like, why did the judge say no to Paul Bernardo, but all these black people, including a freaking clerk that didn't even make the music, is getting put on trial for their music? It doesn't make any sense. You know, it's really just not fair. So as I was saying before, if it were Jack Harlow or Post Malone, it wouldn't really be a thing. But because these are young black kids that are making music and committing crimes, they're using their music against them, even if the music was put out prior to the crime. It seems to be like a pattern where if the perpetrators are Caucasian, they do not use their rap music or whatever kind of music they're making that they're admitting to being violent, disgusting, disturbing criminals in court. But if they black, then they use it against them. If people were wise, they would choose to rap about rainbows and butterflies, child, because if you rap about towing that 9, they gonna come for you once you actually do commit a crime. Did I just rhyme? Oh! Anyway, before I forget, let me mention how frustrated I am with the media when somebody passes away or somebody is murdered. And before these people reach out to the family to get a decent picture, they somehow contact the police and get a freaking mugshot. Because in Canada, your mugshot is not available to the public. Like in America, you can Google somebody's name and their mugshot will pop up. You cannot do that here in Canada unless the media releases the mugshot for reasons of if the person went on the run, for instance, then, or they made it into the news for a crime. Then you'll see a mugshot, okay? If the person is a criminal and they have a mugshot, but they are the victim of a crime, it is not right to use their mugshot to put it in the paper or on the news, on national television, that this is the person that was murdered. Because what that does is desensitizes people, or it doesn't let people extend the proper amount of sympathy or empathy to the family that is grieving over the loss of their child. Especially being that he was only 17. He really didn't know any better, okay? Especially when you are a product of your environment. It's just not fair that they're always using the mugshot of the slain. Like, why are you doing that? If y'all don't contact these people's family and get a proper picture, get a picture where the person is smiling and jolly and happy and not in their jail clothes, because the picture that they released of Mitchell is his mugshot. So when you Google this story, that's the picture that pops up, and that makes you think, oh my God, that's Heartless, and it's not. Because had I not been familiar with Heartless, had I not been familiar with his music, I would think that the young boy that was murdered was Heartless because they used his mugshot. That's not an accident by the media. It's not an accident by the police. They want you to know that this was a criminal as well. And so essentially what I feel they're saying is that he deserved to die. So that's one of my big issues with stories like this. You go looking for a proper photo of the person and you can't find one. Like, I don't even want to, if I can't find a picture of him that's not his mugshot, then that's what I have to use for this video. But like, he is the victim here. He's the victim of a crime. So why am I putting his mugshot up? It doesn't make any sense. The biggest issue with using rap music in a court of law is the fact that the jury is not a jury of your peers. They are going to take these rap lyrics that could very well just be your persona, and what they're going to do is spin it to fit the stereotype of what they perceive a black person to be. So now you are fitting the stereotype, you're fitting the mold. Now, even if you didn't commit a crime, your lyrics can be used against you. Because there are rappers that are capping in Toronto, of course. Not all of them, but there are a few that do not live the life that they're rapping about. They rap about it because that's what people want to hear. When I'm listening to music, I'm definitely cooking a few bricks in my head, okay? So I totally get it. I like to listen to it. And so some rappers are literally just doing just that. They're not really living this life, but they're rapping it. And so maybe they're associated with somebody that is living that life, or maybe somebody's gonna pin something on them and then they're gonna pull out their music videos in court and you're guilty. And I don't think that's fair. And so even though Heartless was convicted of this crime and is guilty of this crime, his story really changed the game in terms of what's admissible in court and what's not admissible in court. And from 2010 onward, you see them using music videos from these rappers over and over again in court at a much larger scale than they were doing before the Heartless situation. Heartless's crime happened shortly before Presidente's crime. It was the same year, just earlier. And if it weren't for this situation happening, they probably would not have referenced Presidente's music videos in the courtroom. And that goes for Mayhem Moriarty's music as well. And so that's why I wanted to cover this story in particular. And so I think the next story I'll cover is Sam G's story, because that story is going to bring us all the way back. And also just, well, Sam G recently got out of jail, so I'm sure he'll be releasing music soon, but he definitely paved the way for a lot of these street artists. He was one of the first people to be from Toronto to be uploading videos on YouTube and getting a substantial amount of views before even I was on YouTube. Like, he is like way back, honey, okay? Like, way back, honey. I'll be covering his story next. Because realistically, if it weren't for Sam G and a few others, you know, we might not be seeing the popularity that Toronto rap has taken on today. Love it or hate it, it is what it is. I feel like Sam G walked so everybody else could run, and there's nothing wrong with that. So Heartless G and LeVar Williams trial, it lasted for 3 months. Like I said, they pulled out all the stops. They used everything that they could possibly find against them. They used intercepted jail letters, so they didn't make it to where they were supposed to go. They used the lyrics and the music videos. They used graffiti and they used tattoos and literally anything that they could find. They added that on top of him being identified in a lineup, as well as clothing being left at the scene of the crime, and they had a witness. So the case was really open and shut, but it also opened Pandora's box in terms of what would be allowed to be used in court, where YouTube is concerned. And the intercepted jail letters are important because it basically allowed the prosecutors to present evidence to the jury that stated that the MOB clique was not just a music group, but it was indeed a gang affiliated with the Von Road Bloods. So they did the utmost to get these convictions, and in the end it worked, because Heartless ended up getting an automatic life sentence without the possibility of parole for the full 25 years. And his co-accused received a life sentence as well, but he was only charged with second-degree murder. And so all that really changes is how long until he'll be eligible for parole. Because if you get a second-degree murder charge, you can be eligible in 10 years, or you can be eligible in 25 years. So anywhere between 10 and 25 years for parole. They've already done 11 years for their crime. Another reason this was an open and shut case was because the Crown was able to produce evidence from video surveillance. They had text messages and phone records that helped their case. And so there was a text message sent from the co-accused's phone to Heartless's phone. That text message was really looked at as a golden ticket, because 2 hours after the victim was shot, he had texted him and said, "Yo fam, is my daughter still with you?" And he doesn't have a child. And so what they tried to say was that this was in reference to his strap, his firearm. That's what they used against him in court. And so this actually reminds me of like the Vibes Cartel case. There were a lot of text messages in that case, and it's not really smart to text after you commit a crime. It's not smart to even have your phone with you at the scene of the crime before it pings off of a cell tower. Like when I watch Forensic Files, these are the things that are happening, and this is how a lot of the time the police are able to find stuff out, because of cell phones. It reminded me of the Vibes Cartel case, because they had some crazy text messages. That is why Vibes Cartel is still in jail, because there ain't no way out of it, around it, through it, underneath it, over it. Like there's just no way. Text messages also were present in the last video I did. And so yeah, your cell phone is definitely not a good thing. It's definitely gonna get you caught each and every single time. They were literally teenagers in high school, fresh out of high school, that didn't have kids. And so when they read this text message, "Do you still have my daughter?" obviously they're gonna know that they're not talking about a physical child. So the case was open shut. They had everything to make it stick. They presented these music videos to the jury, and now they're doing life in prison. Heartless and his co-accused, Mr. Williams, they both opted to not participate in their trial. So they did not take the stand at all. They took what was handed to them, and I haven't found anything online to see if they would be appealing their sentences or not, but I don't think they are. So that's pretty much it for this video. I love you all so much, and I will definitely see you in the next one.